And it looks like we may have a visitor. Is that Joey?
That's me. What's up, man?
How are you?
I am good.
We are a minute ahead of schedule, and I don't think I've ever been a minute ahead of schedule for anything in my life. So I am super excited. I think that's a good omen of things to come. What do you think?
Absolutely.
So for those of you just joining us, the clock did tick over to 2 p.m. Eastern time, so we're right on time to get started. I'll introduce what we're doing here again, and then we'll just launch right into it. So to get started, my name is Ben. I am the editor-in-chief of Performer Magazine, and Elixir Strings has been nice enough to let me host today's event. This is the first in hopefully what's going to be a long-running series of GearSpeak events that we're going to be doing here on Instagram and then archiving later on YouTube for people to watch, where we kind of get to know really cool people in the industry. You know, the MI industry is full of awesome instrument makers that we want to highlight, especially those that, you know, fit their instruments with Elixir Strings, of course. So we want to get to know them, kind of get to know their stories, get to know the people behind the brands, and then also, you know, share some tips that they've learned along the way that we can pass on to other guitar players and bass players out in the world to help them care for their instruments or perhaps learn a technique or something along those lines. So to set up today's call, we're going to be talking to Joey from Journey Instruments. We'll get to learn a little bit about his background, about the Journey story, and then we're going to learn some really cool tips for maintaining your acoustic instruments. So I see some acoustics on the wall behind Joey. So Joey, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of let everybody on the stream here know how you got started with Journey and maybe a little bit about your personal background before we launch into things?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Joey Campanello, and I've been working for Journey Instruments for about 5 years now, going on 5 years now. I've been a guitarist for 10 years now, so I was a little bit of a late bloomer. I didn't get started until I was about 21, but took to it quickly. And yeah, I've been working for Journey Instruments, like I said, the last almost 5 years, doing content creation, playing guitars for him, doing videos, photos, and you know, helping out with quality assurance and all kinds of good stuff like that.
Cool. So you, I believe, also worked previously with Elixir on some Jam in the Van projects as well. Is that right?
Yeah, yep. I did a video with them as well. Yeah.
Awesome. So Journey is a really cool company. You and I have had a chance to speak kind of before this event on the Journey story. But I'd love to do two things. Number one, maybe acquaint people who are joining us on the Journey story, kind of where that company started and what their, you know, what their main focus was getting going in the music industry. And then secondarily to that, some of the unique aspects of their products that we can talk about and then maybe show and demonstrate a little bit. So where did Journey come from and how did that get started?
Well, it started because our founder, Rob Bailey, he's a businessman who was just constantly flying all over the place, traveling constantly, but he also loved playing guitar. He loves playing guitar. He loved playing guitar. And decided that, you know, it wasn't easy enough for him to take his music with him wherever he went. And he felt that whatever travel instruments were out there, they were always compromising on something. You're either compromising on tone or you're compromising on looks or playability or something along those lines, and decided to do something about it. So he made the first Journey Instruments collapsible guitar, and I have one right here actually.
So I'll let you kind of tell the story, but one of the cool things that I think sets Journey apart is I've seen travel guitars. I'm a guitarist myself, and I've used some of them. And really, when people say travel, it kind of means stripped down features, not really great material, something you would use just to sort of kick around. And one of the main problems is a lot of them that claim to be portable aren't all that portable. You try to stick them in an overhead bin or something if you're flying out to a gig or just, you know, going on vacation and want to bring something with you, it doesn't really work. So Journey is kind of cool in that, number one, you're not skimping on materials. You're really using cool state-of-the-art stuff to build these instruments. And they also kind of fit that need of travel. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. And if you can show us some things there that might make a little bit more sense of what I just said to those viewing, that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's 100% what we try to do here at Journey Instruments is we don't want you to ever have to settle for less when you have a guitar, that you want to take somewhere, or just have a guitar to kick around. So what I have right here is, like I said, this is Journey Instruments collapsible guitar, and just by looking at it, it looks like a regular guitar, a little bit smaller perhaps, but looks like a normal guitar. But it has a secret where if you unscrew the back of the neck here, give it a few twists until it's fully out, and then pop this button here once it's fully out. Then the neck comes off completely.
Cool.
And you don't have to detune the strings. You don't have to make any sort of adjustments or anything like that. The neck just pops off that easily. It fits into a carry-on size bag. So it goes on to pretty much any airline. It just fits in there nice that it comes with. And then when you're ready to play again, you just snap it in, click it into place, and then twist the knob in the back again. And you are ready to go.
Very cool. Now this, for those maybe as old as me, I'm probably dating myself, this is an old trick that Telecaster players and Strat players used to do when they were going on the road. Like if they were an East Coast band and they were starting their tour on the West Coast, they would take the necks off and disassemble them and ship the guitars out to the West Coast, reassemble them there, and then head out on tour. But in the acoustic world, it's sort of it's harder to do that. Obviously, most acoustics have glued-in necks, and that's not really an option on your Price, Taylor, or Martin, or anything like that. So that's a really cool trick that you can do. Now, what do you do materials-wise to make sure that the bodies and necks and things aren't moving as you travel across different climates and different humidity zones and things like that?
Yeah, well, we make our collapsible guitars in essentially two different types of materials. We have our wood ones that you can kind of see the bottoms of behind me.
Yes.
And those have reinforced necks, double X bracing, all this good stuff to make sure that they, can handle the rigors of the road and the rigors of putting the neck on and off as much as possible. But they are still wood, so they do have their limitations as far as, having to make sure they're properly humidified and conditioned and all those sorts of things. With this one in particular, this is fully carbon fiber. So it essentially makes it the ultimate travel guitar. What carbon fiber allows you to do is you don't have to worry about any of the things that you have to worry about when you have a wood guitar. You don't have to worry about changes in temperature. You don't have to worry about humidity. You don't even have to worry about it getting completely dunked in water. It's 100% resilient to all of that. So you can pretty much take it traveling with you in any sort of weather conditions or anything like that, and you can have peace of mind that it won't get ruined.
That's really cool. Carbon fiber has kind of been a state-of-the-art thing that guitar manufacturers have tried to use for a long time, and I think the resilience was there from the traditionalists for a while, but I think a lot of that is going away as people see the benefits of it. I know Parker tried to kind of spearhead that in the 90s. But this makes a lot of sense for traveling musicians because wood moves, with humidity and temperature changes. I live in the Northeast. I know if I leave a guitar out on a stand in the wintertime, I'm gonna have to adjust that truss rod at some point, the next day, just because my heating system's kicking on. The temperature might vary 40 degrees one day or another because New England's crazy. But carbon fiber doesn't really move, does it?
Yeah, no, you don't have to worry. Like I said, the wood is, you have to worry about the moisture in the air, moving it. You have to worry about just maybe the glue softening and moving around. You have to worry about the truss rod. You have to worry about all those sorts of things. But carbon fiber, it stays the same shape. It can be heated up. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly how hot, but if you want, you can leave it in the backseat of your car or in the trunk of your car in Texas in the dead of summer for
Yeah.
weeks and weeks, and it will play just the same when you pull it out.
And that is definitely not something you want to test out with a standard acoustic guitar, leaving it in the back seat.
Yeah.
Some heat.
Please
things
don't
will
do it
work.
with your wood guitar.
Your bridge will probably snap, and the reason I can tell you that is because I've had a bridge snap in a car. So
oh no. Yeah.
But that's cool. We would be remiss to ask, one of the big questions, because we are here on the Elixir Strings channel. We definitely do want to, first of all, thank them for allowing us to host this, but also to kind of go along with the whole non-moving elements of carbon fiber and the instruments that Journey produces. What is it about Elixir Strings that you guys kind of gravitated towards to fit them on your instruments, right from the factory?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were developing this product, we went through pretty much every single string manufacturer on the market, because when you're taking the guitar neck on and off, on and off, on and off constantly, you want to make sure that there are strings that can handle that tension and detention without losing their tune too much and without getting too weak, without breaking. Through all of our tests, Elixir always came out on top as far as keeping their quality, keeping their tune, not breaking. So Elixir was definitely, the one we wanted to go with there. And then on top of that, you have Elixir's really super awesome nano web coating that they put on their strings. And what's great about that is that you can kind of have the regular feel of a guitar string without feeling like it has a coating on it, while also protecting it against sweat, grime buildup, dirt, all that kind of stuff, which is going to happen when you're taking your guitar, wherever with you, even more than just like leaving it in the house.
Yeah.
And so it kind of just, we felt like those two things put together made it the perfect string for our guitars.
Absolutely. And as someone who has traveled with instruments before, I know things can get finicky with not only the guitars moving, but just the corrosion on strings. Trying to perform in a town that is very high in saltwater content on the coast has presented some numerous problems string-wise.
Yes, that'll do it.
Personally, I dig the OptiWeb coating myself. Feels a little bit more natural. Other people like the slicker coatings that Elixir makes. So there's something for everybody. If you haven't tried those before, obviously, if you're joining us on the live stream, you're probably familiar. But those of you who aren't, I swear by it. I purchase Elixirs myself. I have done for probably 20 years. Like I said, as someone who has toured and has played in studios, my fingers have a really bizarre pH balance. I guess they eat through strings like nobody's business. So that's why, I have to rely on something that's not going to get so grody and corroded the day I, string up my guitar. So it sounds like, Journey is kind of on the same path there.
100%. Yeah. We factory fit, like you said, we factory fit all of our guitars with 12 lights. These ones you see right here. It's a bit short.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Nice little package for you. Shout out to Elixir, of course.
What we want to do too is not only learn a little bit about you and about the Journey story and about the instruments that you make, but also hopefully provide a learning opportunity. So anybody who's joining us who does play acoustic, either for a living or as a hobby, there are a number of things that you can do, even on a DIY basis, maintenance-wise, to help you get the most out of your instruments. And these are things that you should be doing, just as a course of action throughout the year, and to prevent nonsense like my story, where the actual bridge snaps because you're traveling through different climates and you're not taking care of your instrument properly. And that's something I don't want to see happen to anybody joining us today. So before we talk about some tips, and Joey's going to share some tips, and we'll take questions at the end. I'm trying to copy and paste some cues so that we can A them later. So if you do have questions, go ahead and type them in the comments. We'll try to copy the best ones and save a few minutes at the end. But I do want to just say, before we get into any tips that Joey's going to walk us through, please, if you're not comfortable doing something yourself, consult a local guitar tech or repair shop. Mom and pop shops are great places to go learn about equipment and instrument care. And if you're not comfortable doing something, just bring it in. Most likely, not only will they be able to take care of it for you, But a lot of times they'll show you, what they're doing so that, next time you can go home and do it yourself. So that's just our little disclaimer. If you aren't comfortable doing stuff DIY style, if you haven't been doing this a long time, take it to a qualified person, get it checked out, no problem there. But you'll learn something along the way. So Joey, let me consult my notes here. We've got a couple maintenance tips that we'd like to go over. I don't know if you have any preference on the order, but I know one of the things, especially in the acoustic world, that needs addressing is how to sort of tame buzzing and how the guitar works as sort of a cohesive unit, adjusting saddles and action and string height and that sort of thing. Because I know when you're just starting out, if your strings are buzzing and you don't know how to kind of attack that problem, it can lead to frustration and people quit. They quit because their instrument isn't doing what it's supposed to do, and it could be a simple adjustment. So any sort of tips or tricks that you've learned along the way or that Journey recommends to try to tame that problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I wanted to go over was if you have buzzing or high action on your guitar, things that we can go over for that. So if you are pretty new, you might not know what action is. So action basically is the height of your string away from the fretboard. Okay, so if you have high action, it can be really hard, especially when you're a beginner, to fret chords properly or even play scales or whatever you're trying to do. So there's a couple things that we can look at to try and fix that. And what I'm doing right now is I'm unscrewing the truss rod cover from my guitar so that we can access the truss rod.
People get really scared when it comes to truss rods, both electric and acoustic. Is there anything that you can say to maybe reassure people that it's not scary? Truss rod is not a 4-letter word. I think literally and figuratively, it's not a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
Truss rods shouldn't be scary, should they?
Truss rods shouldn't be scary. Basically, what a truss rod is so you have your guitar, right? And right now it's bowing quite a bit because I have the neck really relieved. And you have your strings that are constantly putting tension on your guitar. They're constantly trying to pull from the top to the bottom and make it bow in like that. So what a truss rod does is it puts tension in the opposite direction to help keep your neck straight. That's all it is. It's not some scary monster lurking inside of your guitar neck or anything like that. It's simply there to help straighten your guitar neck out. So one of the things that you can do, and like we said at the beginning of this, if you aren't comfortable messing with anything to do with your guitar, there's plenty of guitar techs probably in your area. Wherever you want to go, you can take it to them. I will say, also, if you want to do this yourself, only do it in small increments, right? So what you can do is you can find where your truss rod is, which your truss rod is most likely, depending on who made your guitar, on our guitars, it's located at the top of the headset right here, underneath the truss rod cover. It could also be by the sound hole at the bottom of your neck down there. So check where it is. And then what you're going to do is get whatever truss rod key is supplied with. Ours, it's just a simple hex key that comes with the guitar. And then from there, it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So if you are tightening it, if you're tightening the truss rod, just pull this real foot. Tighten the truss rod, you will tighten the truss rod and make it bow backwards more. If you loosen the truss rod, then you're letting the string take over a little bit more, so it will bow in the opposite direction. And what does that mean? So basically that means is if the action is a bit too high for you, then it could mean that your truss rod has too much relief and you need to tighten it up a little bit. So what you'll do is you'll take the truss rod cover up, All right. So one thing that was a sticking point for me when I first started with this, I was like, okay, righty tighty, lefty loosey, cool. But from what angle, from what direction are we
I
doing
think
it
that
from?
puts up a lot.
So yeah, what you need to know is when you are at the headstock, looking down like this, you put your key in there, and then if you want to, if you want to tighten your truss rod to lower the action, then you're going to turn it to the right. So you're going to turn it this way. The right, if you are looking down the guitar from that.
Looking at the guitar. And I will say, let's stress looking at the guitar, because sometimes on Instagram, if you have a front-facing camera, you might actually be backwards.
Right, right. So
looking down the guitar, lefty loosey, righty tighty is the rule of the game. And I know you'll probably get to this, but the reason that truss rods, I think, are scary to people is because they do too many turns. And yes, that could actually damage the neck if you're doing that. I've seen people turn and turn and turn and turn, and they don't know where to stop.
Yeah.
So please talk to people about how much of a turn is probably appropriate to add or remove relief in one go.
I'm glad you're stressing it, because I was going to stress it more here in a second. You can break your guitar neck by over tightening the truss rod. You need to turn in increments of a quarter turn or less.
Really small movement will do it. And
just take it in there. Just a tiny bit. So turn it a tiny bit, get the guitar back, see if the action still feels high to you. And if it doesn't, do it a little bit more. But just do it in very, very, very small increments, because if you just start cranking that thing, you could definitely break your guitar neck, or cause some kind of damage that's going to be really expensive to fix, or it's so expensive you might just need to get a new guitar. So basically, if the action is too high, you want to tighten it. So to the right, and again, to the right when you are at the headstock looking down at the body, to the right. And then if you need to possibly loosen it, if the action is too low, what can happen is your strings can possibly buzz when you're fretting certain strings, playing certain chords. So then you would need to add some more relief to the guitar. So you would go lefty loosey instead to make it bow the other way. And again, very small, because usually if it's buzzing, unless the buzz is really, really, really bad, it's probably only needs to be lifted up like a tiny bit.
It's a fraction of a millimeter, and I think this simple maintenance thing, if you're a beginner, or even if you've been playing for a while and your instrument's kind of buzzing, you don't know where it's coming from, check that relief. You can get feeler gauges on like stumac.com if you really want to get that scientific about it, or you can just go by feel. I tend to go by feel. I sort of know how much relief I like in my necks. I tend to actually like a little bit more. I don't mind, my strings to be a little bit higher so I can dig in. But some people want it as low as possible. And you can do that without buzzing by, just making those micro adjustments. It's not scary. As long as you go slow and test it out after little turns, you shouldn't do any damage. So I want to demystify that for people. This is something you can do. It shouldn't be scary, but we'll say again, if you want to take it to a qualified tech, please do so. If you feel more comfortable, do that.
And if you feel, I just want to interject real fast. Yeah. And if you feel like you've turned it too much and you're not getting it to where you need it to be, you probably are turning it too much, and the issue is possibly something else. So definitely just take it to a guitar tech at that point if you're not comfortable with it.
Exactly. And sometimes, when you do a little turn, just, give it a minute. And what I will say is it might not literally be instantaneous. It might, take a moment for that, wood to move. It is organic material. And test it out in playing position too. A lot of people will tune their guitars and intonate their guitars and make adjustments with the guitar laid flat. But you also want to test it in playing position too. Believe it or not, it does make a difference. So that's my 2 cents on that. So truss rods, not scary, something you can do yourself to alleviate buzzing issues and get the string height the way you want it and get that relief the way you want it.
Absolutely.
So we've got a couple other tips here, and then I do want to take some questions from people who've been typing in. Maybe we can get one more tip here. Let's talk about fretboard care on like a traditional wooden fretboard.
Yes, let's do that. So for that, I'll put up my carbon fiber and bring down the wood.
Excellent. So what are we taking a look at here?
All right. So one of the best things that you can do to not only increase your string life and your string tone and everything, but also just the overall health of the guitar is clean. Is just clean your fretboard. So right off the bat, what I would suggest is, and I know this is hard, but try to wash your hands before you play.
I think we've all.
It's not always the easiest thing. Yeah, there's like preventative and then there's treatment. So preventative is just make sure your hands are clean when you play. But even when you start playing, you know, if you're playing really hard, your hands might get kind of sweaty. So all of that stuff's gonna also get in there. So also wipe down your fretboard and strings after you play every time. Just doing those simple steps will help increase the lifespan of your strings by so much. And then something that you can do less often, but super, super helpful for your wooden guitars is cleaning and conditioning your frets. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you're going to, well, let me show you. Let's just show it. So something that is really easy to do about our guitars is that you don't have to take the strings completely off.
Dude, this makes it much easier to clean a fretboard.
Much easier to clean it, much easier to replace saddles or nuts. You don't have to take the strings completely off to do these things. So let's pop the neck off real fast. All right, so once the neck is off, obviously that means that you have full access to the strings. And if you don't have a guitar where the neck comes off, you would have to either super, super loosen the strings to be able to do this, or just take it off. And this is something... Yeah, or just take the strings off. This is a good thing to do. Like generally conditioning your fretboard is something that people recommend do like once every 6 months, but it's also something you could do just whenever you change your strings if you want. So what you're gonna do from there is you're going to get lemon oil or some sort of brand fretboard conditioner. I think Fender makes one of those. I've got the Ultimate Lemon Oil here with me, but at Journey Instruments, we really love to use Boogie Juice.
Okay.
So this stuff is awesome because it's just like a simple pen that you can use, right? And then what you'll do is you'll take your fretboard, I apologize for the strings, and then you'll basically just color in your fretboard with the pen like this. And what this does is it's breaking up all the dirt that's accumulated on the frets, on the board itself, and it's getting all of that lemon oil in there, which is conditioning the fretboard and making it healthier. So once you've gotten your lemon oil all on there, you will take a rag. I recommend a soft like microfiber cloth. If you want, you could use like a really nice luxury paper towel if it's like really, really nice. And then you'll just basically Karate Kid, you wax on, wax off. So then you'll come in here and you'll rub it all in.
Get all the grime out of there.
Get all that grime out of there. Get your nail in there if you have to.
And one of the nice things that this does too, especially if you're in, like I said earlier, I'm in New England and the climate here is all over the place. The humidity level is all over the place all year round. It's not constant. You know, fretboards tend to dry out here, and that can lead to cracking, can lead to problems that you just don't want to have to deal with. So conditioning the fretboard, like you said, is one of those preventative things that anybody can do whenever you change strings. Just, you know, while you're thinking of it, while you've got the strings off, or if you do have a Journey instrument where the neck actually comes off to make it easier, just, you know, get it in there, get all the gunk and dirt off the fretboard. It's going to keep your strings livelier for longer. And like you said, it's just gonna prevent all that dirt from accumulating and that drying, you know, from potentially, you know, cracking a very valuable instrument.
Absolutely, absolutely, and also just like looks nicer as well. Look at the difference on
I
that.
mean, look at the
compared to the
difference.
others.
Look at the difference there. You know, it's gonna make it shine up and look nice too.
Yeah.
That's all good health stuff for your acoustic. Now we do have a minute here to hopefully answer a question or two that some people have typed in. So I am just going to take one, and hopefully between the two of us we can figure out an answer.
Okay.
I'm new to the world of guitars. Are acoustic bridges, like my electric bridges, replaceable and intonatable? That is a word, yes, intonatable.
Intonatable? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, why not? So how would you intonate an acoustic bridge? Because electric bridges, you know, saddles move, you get a little screwdriver in there, you can move them around and get the perfect intonation. If you're coming from the electric world and you're going to acoustic, how do you do that?
I think that is something that you would have to take to your guitar tech. So what we have here, and I can explain real fast as well, because I can pop this off. So one of the cool things about this is you can, so this isn't the bridge, but it is the saddle. So let me pull that out. So I can pull the saddle right out of the guitar because I can take the strings off. Usually it's held in by tension. And like I said, on electric guitars, they have the adjustable bridges where you can just like screw back and forth whichever way you need to go. This is all you have on most acoustic guitars. It's just a piece of plastic or a piece of bone, something like that. And the intonation on that, basically, you would need to have a guitar tech who knows what they're doing, file it down and sand it down in certain ways to make sure it has the correct intonation on this end. There's also stuff that happens at the other end of the guitar to make it work. But yeah, especially if you're brand new to the world of guitars, that one is just something like, hey, let's take it to the guitar tech. Or you can get on YouTube, you know, if you're really wanting to like become your own guitar tech, there's plenty of resources out there on learning how to do it yourself. But yeah, that's what I would say. There's not really an easy answer for that one.
It's a little trickier on acoustics, not impossible. Make sure your nut slots are cut properly for the gauges that you will be using most frequently. And try to stick to the same gauge, because if you're changing all the time, it's going to be a little bit trickier. If you're sticking with the same gauge of strings for the life of the instrument, you know, once it's set up properly and the gauge is going to remain the same, the tension is going to remain the same. Hopefully the intonation is not going to really change if you're putting the same size strings on all the time. We do have a maintenance question on humidity. And this is good for acoustics. With a wooden acoustic, I've heard differing opinions on whether I should humidify my room or the case to prevent any issues with my guitar moving. Now, what are your thoughts as someone who works for a guitar manufacturer? How do you deal with humidity with acoustic instruments and storage as well?
Sure. Yeah, I think that the easiest way to go is to just worry about humidifying them in their case, individually, because room humidifiers, that's like it's more expensive, it's more of a hassle. And also, if you live in certain areas, you probably don't even need it. Like, down here in Texas, where I'm talking, it's pretty humid here already, so we don't always necessarily need it. Of course, it depends on the, you know, how you keep your house temperature and all that and everything. But the easiest way and the cheapest way to do it is just to get a humidifier for your guitar. And it, you know, it sounds like a mystical thing, but it's literally most of the time. Just you wet a sponge and you put it in a container, and then you put that container in your case, or you might hang it on your guitar strings. And that's honestly cheap, simple, easy, and the best way to go as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. I think the whole room humidifying thing is probably makes more sense if you've got a dedicated studio where you're keeping guitars out all the time. But if you're just playing normally, like someone like me, or even a touring musician where a guitar may be kept in its case more often than not, just doing it in the case is a lot cheaper and easier. And like you said, it's usually just a sponge-based product that, you know, either fits on the guitar or inside the case somewhere. It's all very simple and really inexpensive.
Yeah.
We have time for one last thing, and then we're going to wrap up here. Before we do that, I just want to thank Joey and Journey again for joining us here. I want to thank Elixir again for allowing us to host. Hopefully this is the first of many in our Gear Speak series. If you didn't catch the whole thing, we will archive this on the Performer Magazine YouTube channel. That's where I'm from, guest hosting today. And you can find some more past Instagram Live events that we've done with some really cool artists. Last month we did one with Claire Puckett from Hikes. She showed some awesome techniques on her really stunning D'Angelico guitar. So you can go check some of the past things that we've done as well as this event, and we'll do one more question and we will end, because some of our European viewers have a very important 3 o'clock date with Real Madrid and PSG in the Champions League. So we don't want to keep them from that because it's an incredibly important game that I want to catch myself. Here's a question on acoustics. I know on electrics we can just replace necks if they ever get warped or damaged. On acoustics, I had a neck warp and told the guitar was basically, I think the word they're going for is unfixable. I'm not sure what they're saying here, but neck warps on acoustics, that's a different beast than on electric. Like a Fender, you can take the neck off and replace it. Those parts are meant to just bolt on and get, you know, assembly line style fixed together. On an acoustic, are neck warps even something to deal with, even take it to a tech, or are you pretty much done at that point?
Yeah, I mean, the neck is such a because it's holding so much tension all of the time. Even like small issues with it can mess up the whole thing. Like technically, if you wanted to, you could have a giant hole in your guitar. I mean, you kind of already have one from the factory. And it would still be playable. If you have even the slightest thing off with a neck, it's going to ruin your intonation. It's going to make it untunable. It's going to make it go out of tune constantly, even when you do tune it. And so I think that most of the time, they say it's unfixable because if it's warped to a certain degree or something like that, then it's easier to just try and put a new one on it. And then at that point you hit a, okay, well, is it easier to try and retrofit a neck onto this guitar? Or is it just going to be cheaper to just buy a whole new guitar? And I think that that's basically what it comes down to, is the neck is so important, which is why it's important to maintain it properly, condition it, and take care of it. And you know, that's one of the things that's also great about our Journey guitars, is that when you're taking it on a journey with you, one of the most fragile things about it is it busting in half, the neck, you know, flying off or cracking on an airline or wherever it may be. And hey, guess what? It's already broken up. So you just have to put it back on.
I will say this about necks. Obviously, with the carbon fiber neck, it's probably not an issue that you're ever going to run into. So I think that's a big plus for your camp.
Absolutely.
Acoustic necks technically are replaceable. If you have a really, really skilled luthier, it can be replaced. It's costly. It's a lot of work. It's a skill that you need to make sure that luthier actually possesses. So check out their past work if they've ever done that before. So if it's a prized, you know, early turn of the century Martin, yeah, you may, that's a judgment call on whether you want to have a new neck retrofitted or not. I will say 2 other things about neck movement and warpage. Number 1, I've had people show me guitars that they've said the neck is warped. What they actually mean is the neck is either bowed or concave. And that, like we talked about earlier, is just a simple truss rod adjustment in a lot of cases. That's not a warp. A warp is when the neck wood itself is actually twisted out of true. Bowing is a different thing. Bows can be corrected. I like more bow, so I actually add it to some of my guitars a little tiny bit. Neck warpage is a different beast. That's when it's actually twisted. And I will say 2 things about that. Number 1 is usually it can't be fixed. I'm sorry, it just can't. Will require a new neck, acoustic or electric, doesn't really matter. That's a tough thing to sort out. Number 2 is a lot of times that sounds like a factory defect or a warranty type issue. So before you go running off to attack and say, oh, my neck is warped, contact the manufacturer, because that really shouldn't happen. There's very few instances where that should happen. Most modern manufacturing facilities right now are drying their woods so well that all the resin inside that wood is crystallizing. The moisture content is getting down to about 4 to 6%. So you can have a little bit of movement, but it shouldn't be warping. If it is, talk to the people that made the guitar, because hopefully they'll try to sort you out, because they don't want that out in the world.
Absolutely.
And secondarily to that most likely, in again, I don't want to give you advice that I'm unqualified for, but it may be a warranty issue. So it might be something just to check into. But yeah, that's a bummer. I'm sorry to the person who wrote that in. It sounds like you probably had that issue, and we're hoping for better news, but check with the manufacturer, see if that's something they can sort out for you on the warranty side of things. If not, and it's a really special instrument to you, take it to a luthier who has a track record of being able to either replace or fix something like that. Mm-hmm. But that's my 2 cents on neck warps.
Your 2 cents.
Unfortunate situation to find yourself in. I hope nobody out there has that. And if you buy a carbon fiber neck, you're not gonna run into that issue. So, Joey, I want to thank you so much for joining us, sharing some tips for folks out there in the instrument world. Where can people find Journey Instruments online to go learn more and check you guys out?
Yeah, you can find us at journeyinstruments.com or pretty much any social media website like Instagram at Journey Instruments.
Excellent. So that'll do it for this session, the inaugural episode of Gear Speak here on the Elixir Strings channel. My name is Ben. Again, I'm the editor of Performer Magazine. It's been my honor to host today, hopefully the first of many. If you weren't able to catch the whole thing, like I said earlier, we'll archive this on YouTube, no worries, and we'll put out social media links so you can find it. And we'll also save it right here to the Elixir channel too. So you can come back, watch, check out the Journey story, learn a little something, and we hope everybody had fun. So for our Euro visitors, go watch your football match. Hala Madrid, and we'll catch you all later. Thank you, Joey.
Thanks, Ben. Take care.